It's news some would call a decision heard around the world. President Trump, who's previously called global warming a hoax, announces his decision on U.S. participation in the Paris Climate Agreement.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord.
Just what are we leaving behind? The Paris Agreement is a global pact to fight climate change backed by nearly 200 countries. Its goal is to limit planetary warming by slashing carbon dioxide and other emissions. It includes a U.S. pledge to significantly reduce emissions by 2025. Hundreds of American businesses oppose withdrawal. Chevron and ExxonMobil, Microsoft, Apple, Starbucks, The Gap, and others argue the agreement generates jobs, limits environmental damage, and keeps America's place in the global stage. Sarah Ladislaw is director of the Energy and National Security Program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies here in D.C. She was at the U.S. Energy Department during the George W. Bush administration. It's nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
I mentioned that there are hundreds of businesses that are, and also even people within President Trump's own group who are against what he has said very often, that he does not believe in climate change, that he says sort of versions of give me a break about it, or China's manipulating it, essentially. How unusual is that these businesses are actually taking the lead in something of this magnitude on a global stage?
I think that one of the things you find is really interesting is now government companies have said, no, we actually think the long-term trend in the global economy is towards lower carbon energy, and we don't want to be confused about that. We want some clear signals so that we can prepare for that future, and it's part of their strategies.
Any withdrawal is really a 2019 withdrawal.
Yeah, so I think that's an often missed point. I'm glad you brought it up, which is that the president can signal whatever they want right now, but the fact of the matter is in the agreement, it takes a long time to execute on that withdrawal. And I think that that's actually a good thing. It could give people some time to continue this conversation, long past a decision or counter-decision or whatever the case might be is made, to really consider whether or not actually pulling out of the agreement is in the long-term interest of the United States.
If the U.S. loses the seat at the table or walks away fully from the seat at the table, can others just step up and do it without the U.S.?
I think if the U.S. does pull back, the agreement, the effectiveness of the agreement, which goal is to limit emissions, to prepare the world for a changing climate, to move financing to countries for which, climate change is actually an existential threat, right? That those efforts will be harmed without U.S. leadership at the table.
We also lose, we being the United States, also lose the opportunity for some of these green jobs that are going to be created.
Absolutely. I mean, when you think about economic leadership, most of the countries around the world are trying to skate to where the puck is, not, be protectionist about their economies and try and hold things the way that they used to be. I think that there's an idea that because there is sort of real social and economic mobility issues in this country, and that this administration is trying to speak to them, that you have to do that by sort of rolling back the clock and bringing back industries that just aren't as competitive as they once were. When in point of fact, the United States has huge advantages when it comes to a whole bunch of different things, whether it's renewable energy, whether it's storage, whether it's the data that will feed into these new energy economies. So I think that we really do need to think about, what the agreement actually brings to the table in creating competitive advantages for the United States while, oh, by the way, doing something that's really important, like dealing with climate change.
Sarah Ladislaw, nice to have you.
Thank you very much. Nice to talk to you.